You've done it all throughout your career. What was it about Love for the Ages that attracted you to this project and made you want to host it?
Honestly, the fact that I tune into these kind of shows, I've absolutely loved all the relationship experiment shows. I think they're intriguing. I think they keep us glued to our televisions. And I'm just super excited that I got to be in the mix. It's kind of funny because my whole team from hair, makeup, my management team, they normally will get me ready for a show or a job. And they're kind of like, okay, have a great job, have a great time at work. And this time, they were all like, can we come with you? Can we find out what's going on? They didn't want to miss a beat because they were so invested in the storylines of these wild couples and what was going on with the premise of this show.
Definitely. Each of the couples has such a distinct reason for why they're there. Which of their journeys surprised you the most and why?
I have to say that Richie and Mariachi probably
Hmm.
surprised me the most because I felt like I really appreciated Mariachi's vulnerability and her
Yeah.
transparency in talking about what she'd been through in her relationship and, experiencing infidelity in her relationship. And I really give it to Richie for being honest and open and owning and taking full just accountability for why his relationship was in the place that it was. And I think that that's something so many people can relate to. And that one to me was really intriguing. At one point, she shared with me that she didn't feel safe with
Mhm.
Richie. And I got emotional with her because it was like that aha moment for her where she was just like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I know what I'm missing in my relationship because of the betrayal, because of the mistrust. I don't feel safe with my husband.
Hmm. I feel like she's a fan favorite of this series. What was going on in your head when she's pouring out, her heart out in that final decision, and you're just sitting in between the both of them?
It was hard because
Yeah.
here's the thing. I felt like I got to know Richie's heart really well in the sense of like,
Hmm.
I know he loves Marioxie and he really wants to be with her and he wishes so badly now looking back that he could change what was done in the past, but he can't. And I think it was really frustrating for him also to have to feel like he was always in an upward climb with her
Yeah.
in the sense of like, okay, I messed up. We've chosen to stay together, but now every day I have to see the repercussions of the wrong I did, not just by hearing about what I did, but seeing that she'd gone through, depression and sadness and she wasn't able to move on. It was really hard for her to just go, okay, I know you were unfaithful to me, but you said I'm sorry, so now everything's okay. And
Hmm.
that's the reality of relationships. So I think just being able to have a real insight into that was super interesting.
And throughout your career, you've always shared the lessons that you've learned along this journey. What would you say is the biggest lesson that you learned being a part of this project that you've now been able to bring to future projects?
Wow, I would say I think communication in a relationship is so important. I think we hear that all the time, but I think we don't realize that when you've been with someone for such a long time, you almost have to recalibrate the relationship every so often
Yeah.
because your goals and your expectations are going to change as time changes and as your lives change, whether it's, looking at Maria and her husband in the sense of Maria and Michael, I feel like they had been together since they were 16 years old.
Yeah.
Recognizing that spark that you had at 16 is not going to be the same 2 children later, 20 something years later. And kind of just figuring out, okay, what are the expectations? What are the expectations? I want to go out partying. I want to travel. And this person's like, that's not really my interest. And it's about learning to grow, but kind of grow in the same direction. And I know that that's not always easy.
The reunion special is dropping later this week. What can you tease about what fans can expect? What was it like reuniting with the couples and also the singles?
I was not ready. I did not expect such an explosive
Yeah.
reunion. I thought I kind of knew everything that was going to happen or that could happen, and I was completely thrown for a loophole. I'm talking totally different, new relationships emerge. Like there's a specific relationship that comes out of this that you're like, wait, what? Like it's
Yeah.
insane. And there are some other, there's accusations, there's things that we actually get to see behind the scenes of clips that maybe we didn't get to see before. I think there's just so much that people are going to be shocked by at the reunion.
Yeah, it definitely gets super heated. And there are a lot of little surprises here and there. And you've had so many vulnerable conversations, especially in the public eye, especially when you were hosting The Real. How have
Yeah.
those experiences allowed you to build trust with the couples and the singles and have these open, authentic conversations that we see unfold throughout the series and also during the reunion special?
I feel like just being able to share, I think when you talk to people, it's important to also, if they're going to share their hearts, that you do the same.
Mm.
I think there's something to be said about, okay, let me ask you a million questions about yourself, but I don't have any plans to share anything about me. I think it creates a little awkward situation. So in my case, I think coming from a place like The Real, where I shared everything and anything for over almost 10 years, it was easy for me to just really ask the questions and kind of try to understand where they were coming from and what was going on. And I feel like that made it really special. I think that made it made it that much more real.
And you've also become one of the co-hosts of E! News. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank
What
you.
has it meant to you to be part of this legacy? And has it lived up to everything you expected and more?
I'd say absolutely. I think it definitely has. Again, like you said, just to be a part of the legacy of E! News, I think it is the gold standard of celebrity news. And I think I've had the most fun working with Justin Sylvester and just being able to literally give the rundown every single day of like your top 10 craziest news stories. I feel like we are the go-to place for everything you need to know, whether
Yeah.
it's even from our Instagram account to the actual show. I love being able to just run it down. I feel like it keeps me in the know. I read my script every day and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So I absolutely love it. It's been so much fun. And again, I'm just grateful to add more of a journalistic aspect to my resume.
Yeah, you've had so much success throughout your career. When you look back, is there a particular moment that stands out, and who or what has had the biggest influence on your journey thus far?
Wow. I would say, I think Cheetah Girls definitely was probably the biggest moment in my career because it really taught me that projects that I think sometimes you can be like, oh my God, this seems like just a fun little kid show. Like that has been the thing in my career that really catapulted me. And that till this day, when I watch TikToks and I see people getting dressed up for Halloween as the Cheetah
Mm,
Girls, I look back and I remind myself not to view any piece of work as like, oh, just a throwaway. You know what I mean? That to make everything significant and important, because you never know which projects will be the one that like completely takes off. Like I would not have thought that Cheetah Girls would have been and would have done what it did do, selling out arenas and having the
yeah,
impact that it did. But ultimately, I think the one thing um, that has kind of been the common thread through my entire career has really been about authenticity and representation.
yeah,
And I think, like if I had to pick three major things that have really helped my career, it's been one, always being down for girl power and promoting and empowering women. Two would be, I mean, literally, I've been in two girl groups, and then The Real was pretty much my third girl group.
yeah.
So I think being able to work with women, there's something so beautiful about that, and I really loved it. I would say two would be always being authentically who I am. I feel like my authenticity is what opens the doors for me and really makes me connect with people. And I think that that's really what I built my career on, is relatability. So never like not changing and keeping that
Yeah.
in mind when I'm doing projects. And the third thing I would say is representation, the fact that I'm Latina and I literally walk around so proud of my culture and excited to represent it. I really feel that that has knocked down multiple doors that I'm so excited to see this next generation run through.
Yeah, beautifully said. And you also recently became a mother. Congratulations again about
Thank
that as
you.
well. If your son wanted to follow in a similar path and footstep, what advice would you give him?
I would tell him to never compare himself to anyone else. And that's myself and my husband included, that he's going to have his own path and make his own way. And there is no blueprint. And the awesome thing about that is that he gets to write his own story, whatever that is. And ultimately that I will support and go hard for him. Like I would give him the world, and he's always got my support, whatever it is that he decides to do. I don't want my son to do anything other than be happy. And that's the goal. And I want him to have a childhood. I think that that's really important to me, is that whatever it is that he chooses to do, that it comes after he's got to enjoy his childhood.
You were talking about representation a little bit earlier. Have you had time to reflect on kind of the contributions that you've made for communities that want to see their stories represented on screen and the impact that you've had throughout your career?
I love that, like, I love hearing from people that are like, wow, you were the first person that I saw on TV that looked like me or sounded like me, specifically when it comes to Disney Channel. And then obviously with the real ending and just recognizing the impact that that show had.
Yeah.
When it ended, I think was the first time that we really realized, oh my gosh, we were the first to ever have a show that looked like our show. The fact that I was the first ever Latina in daytime is wild to me, and it's still mind blowing. And I'm just excited and waiting for the next person to do it. And I cannot wait to pass the torch.
And throughout your career, you've picked projects that really have resonated with audiences. What is that vetting process like when you decide what you want to be a part of?
It depends. I think especially because that has changed as my career has come along. I think even now being a mother, what I choose to be involved with now depends on, does it take away from the time I get to have with my son? Is it something that I think he would be proud of, or something that I think he would love? I've heard of a lot of actors or actresses or hosts say, oh, I took this job because my kid was a fan of, whatever it is, whether it's a cartoon or, I don't know if at some point I've always wanted to do voiceovers. And so as Ever gets older and he starts watching cartoons, I think a dream job would be to maybe be a part of an animated series that he's like, my mom is the voice of whatever. Like, I would want to do things that he would find cool and significant and awesome. But long term, I even think with what I went through to have my son and the fertility issues that I went through and just my whole journey, if there is a way to share that and turn that into a legacy of trying to help people and bring people information that can be somewhat helpful to them and bring hope, that is my main goal right now.